So we got some really important news that's coming out here this morning. The Las Vegas Raiders have placed superstar defensive tackle Christian Wilkins on the physically unable to perform list. And I want to talk about what this means for the Raiders because there's multiple moving pieces at this point with this news that's coming out. Let's talk about the report. So Ian Rappaport puts it out there. The Raiders placed defensive tackle Christian Wilkins on the physically unable to perform list. As Wilkins is recovering from foot surgery, he's been making sound progress recently. So let's talk about what this means for the Raiders. So first and foremost, when players come to training camp, the first thing that they have to do is they have to pass a physical. Christian Wilkins at this point would probably not pass that physical, and he probably wouldn't be approved by team doctors to go out there and play and or practice, I should say. So right away, that's going to basically limit what you can do with Christian Wilkins. But by putting him on the physically unable to perform list, it does open up a roster spot. So although Christian Wilkins can technically be in the building, he can be in team meetings, he can be in the weight room, he can be around, essentially even around practice if he wants to. He cannot get on the field and do anything at all, right? So he can't put pads on when the Raiders do ultimately put their pads on. He can't get out there and run around with the team. He can't stretch and do those type of things. He's basically not allowed on the football field. Now, with that, it does also open up a roster spot. So the Raiders right now have 89 players on the roster. So they technically will now have 88 players that are active and able to be out there. So they'll be able to sign 2 players at this point, which is interesting because at some point over the next, 5 to 7 days, the Raiders are going to make some moves. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if as soon as like today or tomorrow, some player comes and visits with the Raiders and the Raiders ultimately end up signing this guy. Last week, we cut Carter Bradley, quarterback, which gave us that one extra spot. And then by putting Christian Wilkins on the PUP list, that also basically gives you another spot. Now, another thing to note is Christian Wilkins being on the PUP list isn't too much of a deal, but it could indicate a couple of different things. So the fact that he can't pass a physical, that's expected given that he had the foot in a boot just as recently as 2 or 3 weeks ago when that image came out of him at Kyle Van Noy's party. He wouldn't be able to pass a physical, but it's also more than that. Some people have speculated he may have already got that second surgery just a couple weeks back. Some people have said, he might get surgery in the near future. But what we know with Christian Wilkins right now is he's not going to practice. So that kind of changes and shifts things around because some people thought, hey, back in April, back in May, some people thought, hey, Christian Wilkins at some point will be healthy. Training camp's still like 4 weeks away, 6 weeks away, 8 weeks away. He'll be healthy. He'll be ready to go when training camp starts. So now we're at that point. Training camp, is here and he's not going to be healthy. He won't be able to at least participate at this point. But being on the PUP list, all this guy has to do to be able to just kind of become active again is just pass a physical. It's as easy as that. He goes into the building. He sets that physical with doctors. He passes it. Once he passes that physical, he's basically ready to go. And he can be on the field as soon as possible. So, the PUP list does open up a roster spot. And I think in that instance, it's smart and it just kind of makes sense given that he can pretty much do everything minus be on the field. Another thing to note is if Christian Wilkins starts the season on the PUP list, and again, I know that's a long time away, but just do keep in mind, we are a long time away from training camp at some point. Although the season is a long time away, if he starts on the PUP list, he will miss 4 games. And then if he's not activated after those 4 games, he'll miss the rest of the season. So, just kind of keep that in mind. Like Christian Wilkins can't be on the PUP list for, the first 14 weeks of the season. And then week 15, he ends up becoming activated, and then he just kind of plays for the Raiders. If he's going to play for the Raiders this year, we'll know, obviously the first week of the season will be the big one, right, to know if he's healthy or not. And we'll know before that because he'll be practicing. But if he's essentially not going to play for the Raiders, he'll miss 4 weeks. So he won't be here for the first 4 games. And we'll see if that actually ends up happening. I'm sure we'll get a couple more players that when the physical time kind of comes around, that might feel a physical, right? Like there's a chance Malcolm Koonce will come in. He'll try to do his physical, and keep in mind, he might not actually be in the building right now because the veterans don't have to report for a couple more days. So he might not be in the building, so he may not have had the chance to do that physical, but he could ultimately fail the physical as well and not be ready day one. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because he's already been on the field, in mini camp and OTAs as well. So I don't think Koonce will end up being in the same situation where he's on the PUP list, but I do expect at least 2 or 3 other guys to end up on the same list as well. So we'll see what ends up happening as we kind of go forward. It is unfortunate, but it makes sense to put him on the PUP list. And at this point, we can just make the assumption that he had surgery in the last couple of weeks. I would hope that he had that surgery back in like April or May, maybe right after he got on the field the first time. I think that might have end of April, beginning of May, right around that time. I would hope he had surgery around that time, right? He realized it pretty quickly, had that surgery, and that's why he has not been out there for the Raiders. And from a timeline perspective, I believe it's like 4 to 6 months, right? They could be ready as soon as 4 months, and then if they're not ready, maybe 6 months. And let's just say he had surgery on June 1st. That means he could be back sometime, maybe after like week 6 or 8. Right. So we'll see what ends up happening. There's a couple other things that I want to talk about. Derek Carr was recently on at a golf tournament. And at that tournament, he was asked a little bit about the Las Vegas Raiders. He was asked about the new offense and just kind of his thoughts and opinions. And I want you guys to listen to this, and then we'll talk about this on the other side.
I love Pete Carroll. I've always loved him, always admired him from afar. His guys play super aggressive, super fast on defense. They're simple, but they play fast, and they fly around, and they run to the football. On offense, they're going to run the football, obviously, with their draft pick. Even though he's a Boise State Bronco, I'll look past that. He's a Raider now, so we're family. And, I think that part, running the football will hopefully alleviate some pressure for Geno, and Geno can go out there and do what he does and be accurate. He's a crazy accurate passer. I've always been a big fan of his, always had a good relationship with him, so I'm rooting for Geno. Hope he breaks all my records, hope he has the greatest career in time with the Raiders, because that's what you want, is you want to leave a legacy, and then you hope that someone else can come in and try and break it, try and top it, and that's what I'm rooting for him.
I'm sure the stadium won't keep you away for long this season.
No. I've already talked to Mr. Davis. We've already talked. He's already called me. He literally texted me as soon as I retired, "Love you, man." And so we were talking, and we're going to, after this tournament, obviously talk and figure out what that looks like and when that looks like. But I can't wait to get back to a Raider game and get down there on the sideline and see the fans again. That's my place. I love my time with the Saints. I love the people, love the fans and the organization. But I spent all my years, almost a decade with the Raiders. So I can't wait to get back.
So there you guys have it, right? A couple different things that Derek Carr said in relation to Pete Carroll. So first and foremost, Derek Carr being a quarterback, talked a little bit about Pete Carroll's defense. He said it's kind of simple, but it's, they play fast, it's super quick. And that's kind of what we should expect out of this defense, right? If you guys remember, Gus Bradley also coached for Pete Carroll. And Gus Bradley was our defensive coordinator just a couple years back, I think 2021. And when Gus Bradley came in, it was like the same thing, where it was like a simple cover 3 scheme. But it's not as simple, right? It looks simple, right? You see, okay, it's a cover 3, but Pete Carroll's going to add multiple different rules to the defense, right? So yeah, it's a cover 3 shell. It's probably going to be cover 3. But it might be something like, hey, instead of the corner on the boundary dropping back, let's drop the slot cornerback, right? Or something like that, right? They'll just kind of add some twists into the defense. And that's not going to be like 30% of the time, but they'll add elements on top of it, and it allows it to work. And the fact that you're simplifying it, it also allows people to play fast. The worst thing you can do is have way too many different rules on top of different coverages. And then your guys are like confused, right? I think Bill Belichick and Patrick Graham, right, come from the same scheme. Right? Patrick coached for Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick does that, right? Where he puts all these different rules and things into his defense, which is why a lot of players will come to the Patriots, spend a year there, and then they'll get rid of them, right? Because they can't potentially process and understand all those different rules. But Pete's kind of the opposite, right? And Derek Carr obviously is going to give this guy credit and says Pete's defenses have always kind of been physical. And then he talks about the offense a little bit. And I love hearing this coming out from Derek Carr. The way the split ended with Derek Carr and the Raiders, it was not great, but do also understand this happens with every single player that leaves a team for the most part, right? Every player that's been with the team for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, they end up splitting off that team. It always ends up kind of negative, but at the end of the day, Derek Carr is a true Raider. He'll always be a Raider. He'll always be welcome. I love Derek Carr, man. Just kind of hearing him speak is refreshing, right? Because, I don't know, for me, he's one of the greatest Raiders that I've ever watched, right? And I say that I've only watched the Raiders for like 15 or 20 years at this point, right? I'm 32. I didn't really grow up watching football. I probably started watching football when I was like maybe 10, 11 years old. I started playing probably right around that time as well, too. So, regardless, Derek Carr is one of the greatest Raiders that I've ever watched. Love Derek Carr. But he talks a little bit about the offense. He makes a little joke, even though Ashton Jeanty's from the Bronco State team, right? If you guys know, Fresno, where Derek Carr's from, plays Boise State. I think they're in the same conference. He's still showing respect, and he's a great running back. And of course, Pete Carroll. It's a run-first type of team, as Derek Carr says. And he thinks Geno Smith is going to be really, really good out there. He says that Geno Smith is accurate. He's a crazy accurate passer. That's exactly what Derek Carr says. And what's interesting about that is, Geno Smith last year, and I forget who the guy was. It was a quarterback analyst that I was watching, and he was kind of saying some of the same things that I had seen when I watched Geno Smith, and this guy's much more respected than I am, especially analyzing quarterbacks. But this guy was talking about Geno Smith. I think this was like a year and a half ago, right? And he talked about how with Geno Smith, the guy has so much success pushing the ball like 30 plus yards down the field. And his accuracy on deep passes is incredibly, incredibly good. And when I say accuracy, I'm talking about specifically about ball placement, right? Putting the ball exactly where it needs to be. Geno Smith does a really, really, really good job. And the stats back that up as well, right? I think he's the most accurate deep passer over the last 4 years. But what's crazy about Geno Smith is most quarterbacks are better within 15 or 20 yards. 4-yard pass and 9-yard pass. Most quarterbacks are better in that range than they are 20, 30, 40 yards down the field. Geno Smith's the opposite. He's not as good, within 5, 10 yards. He's not as good in the middle of the field, right? This is just something with Geno Smith that's just kind of, the scouting report on Geno. He's a lot better pushing the ball downfield. So when you think about the Raiders, you bring in Dante Thornton, you bring in guys you have guys like Trey Tucker, you bring in some of these guys, Colin Johnson, he's 6'5" and he's fast, right? You bring in these guys that are fast, that are quick, that can, run and beat guys downfield. It makes sense. Geno Smith's going to push the ball downfield a ton. Last year people said the reason why Geno Smith struggled as much as he did was because of the new offensive coordinator that the Seahawks had hired last year. He did not do a good job pushing the ball downfield. Instead, he wanted Geno to be in between the hash marks, right? He wanted to have him, throw 12-yard passes, and he wanted to script an offense for Geno as opposed to letting this guy play loose. I think with Chip Kelly, he's going to definitely let Geno Smith do some Geno Smith things. So I'm excited for this season, man. Hopefully Derek Carr is back with the Raiders this season and he can officially retire as a Raider, right? Sign that one-day contract. Let's wrap it up, man. Final thing that I just want to touch on really quickly. The Raiders officially have signed Jack Bech, right? So he's officially been announced for the Las Vegas Raiders. I know we had already heard about this yesterday, so it's not not anything crazy, but it's official. It's officially released. When the Raiders put it out there with the official press release, that's when it counts. If you guys remember the Jimmy G situation that had happened, the Raiders signed this guy, and then they ended up backtracking, and then the presser gets canceled, and all this stuff kind of happens. And we've seen over the years, right? Until it's official, it's not official, right? But Jack Bech is official with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders rookies are in the building, and we'll see what they kind of do over the course of today. I would not be surprised if there's another video that I drop within the next couple of hours. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned because there's so many different reports and things that are going to come out as we kind of go forward. Football season's back, man. It is official. Let me know what you guys think. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.